What's up, folks, and welcome back to Blue Jays Today. In this video, guys, I'm actually not going to be talking about the Toronto Blue Jays postseason or playoff chances or anything like that, guys. I mean, the offseason, it is on the horizon, and I wanted to take a moment and just look at the Blue Jays roster, look at their players, look at everything as a whole, and come up with a list of 5 Toronto Blue Jays who are on the team right now today that I don't think is going to be coming back in 2024. Make sure you stay to the end, folks, because I think the last one is definitely going to start a little bit of discussion. Also, if you enjoy Toronto Blue Jays news and coverage and just discussion as a whole, then smash that subscribe button. Postseason is coming up. We're going to be going live here for every single Toronto Blue Jays postseason game. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be electric, and I want to see every single one of you guys there. All right, folks, let's get into it. So the first player that I want to talk about here is Matt freaking Chapman. Matt Chapman, when he walked into this season for the Toronto Blue Jays, wow, that dude looked incredible, right? In the month of April, Matt Chapman was he was going nuclear. It was incredible what he was doing at the plate. And when you factored in what he does consistently on the defensive side of the ball, you were looking at an MVP caliber player in the month of April. But after that, what happened? I don't know. In the second half of the season, Matt Chapman's hitting for a 208 average and an OPS of 654. And I just think that Matt Chapman's tenure with the Toronto Blue Jays as a whole, like, it's been good. You know, it's been good, but it hasn't been great. When they traded for him, I think a lot of Blue Jays fans, myself included, we were looking for that big middle of the lineup power bat. You know, it was like, wow, Matt Chapman, could he come into the Rogers Center and hit 30, 35 home runs and get back to the place that he was a few seasons ago in 2018, 2019? And that just hasn't happened, right? Like, we were hoping that he would take that next step this year and fill in for Teoscar Hernandez and Lourdes Gurriel Jr. And you saw that in the month of April, but it just hasn't continued for the rest of the year. And Matt Chapman's in a very interesting spot as well, because he's really the only notable third baseman that's going to be on the free agency market this year. So because of that, and because his agent is Scott Boras, I'm thinking to myself that he's probably going to be able to run up the market value a little bit. And if you're the Toronto Blue Jays, like, at this point, you know what you're going to get out of Matt Chapman. You're going to get a guy who probably hits for a, 240, 230 batting average, potentially maybe 250, right? And you're going to get a dude who's kind of chilling in that 700 OPS range. And that's okay. That's good. But when you have guys like Orelvis Martinez and Addison Barger and other prospects who are waiting in the wings, looking at that third base spot, I think that you want to go in that direction instead. So I think, honestly, Matt Chapman, he came in, he did his role. He was always going to be that bridge guy of 2 years until these prospects are ready to go. And at this point, based on what Martinez and Barger, they're doing in the minors, they're pretty much ready to go. The next player that I don't think is going to be returning to the Toronto Blue Jays in 2024 is Hanjin Ryu. And this one kind of stinks, man, because Ryu, he's put in the freaking work, right? You see that work ethic, you see that leadership from Hanjin Ryu that you just don't see in some other players, and what he was capable of doing. To have that injury, to be out for an extended period of time at his age, and then to come back and just dominate, like, respect. I just feel like, though, that the Toronto Blue Jays, they've invested so much money into that pitching staff, right? Gosman, he's on a long contract. Berrios, long contract. Bassett, long contract. Even Kikuchi was getting paid a decent amount of money. And when you're looking at all of that money that you're spending on these veteran and aging pitchers, at some point you kind of need to add in a little bit of homegrown talent, right? You just can't keep kicking the can down the road and buying these veteran guys. So as much as Ryu brings stuff to the clubhouse, and I do think that he deserves another contract, I just don't know if the Toronto Blue Jays are going to want to go in that direction this offseason. We also got to factor in that we don't know what's happening with Alek Manoah, right? Is he going to be back up in the team and fill in that last rotational spot? And then on top of that, Ricky freaking Tiedemann. He is supposed to be expected to come up to the MLB in 2024. And this kid, he looks good. You know, like, I want to give Ricky Tiedemann an opportunity in the major leagues. And if you have Hanjin Ryu there on top of the 4 other veteran pitchers there's just not going to be an opportunity for Ricky Tiedemann or for Alek Manoah to come up and to pitch. So I think that they're going to let Hanjin Ryu walk, and they're going to leave that spot open for either Manoah or maybe Ricky T. Third guy who I can confidently say is not going to be on the Toronto Blue Jays next year is Brandon Belt. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about Brandon Belt because honestly, the biggest reason for why Brandon Belt probably won't be back with the Toronto Blue Jays is just the fact that this guy might retire. He's already come out and said that like this is probably gonna be his last year in the MLB, and that is totally fair, right? This guy's won a World Series before, he's made his money, he's been on a few different teams, and he's like 35 years old, right? At this point, he probably wants to go and have his other life outside of baseball with his family, and does he really want to be moving around to another city if that happens? You know, so I totally understand Brandon Belt at this point of his career just saying, you know what, I did it, I've won, I'm ready to move on with my life. I do think, though, that the Toronto Blue Jays are probably going to look at bringing somebody in to do that Brandon Belt role, you know, like a veteran hitter who can maybe fill in for Guerrero if he needs some time off of his feet, or who can do a DH spot, something like that. I just don't think it's going to be Brandon Belt. Fourth guy, this one's interesting, Kevin freaking Kiermaier. Now, Kevin Kiermaier, I was honestly thinking there was going to be a high probability that the Toronto Blue Jays did explore bringing him back onto the team because, you know, he's just provided so much defensively. He's actually been an above average bat, which you don't often see from Kevin Kiermaier, and I just feel like he provides a really good locker room presence. But recently, we just got some wild reports that Kevin Kiermaier is apparently interested in the New York Yankees. Now, he did come out, he did speak to Hazel May, said that this story was blown out of proportion. He's unhappy that they even ran it in the first place. So, I mean, take it what you will, but just the fact that like that information is coming out at this point of the season, like that's just not a good look. You know, postseason is 2 weeks away. So the fact that we're hearing that, oh yeah, like Kevin Kiermaier maybe could go to the Yankees in the offseason, like that's not where I want your head to be at right now. I think on top of that, the Toronto Blue Jays are going to be looking at that position group as a whole and asking themselves, do we really want to invest more money into an aging outfielder? And Kevin Kiermaier, he's earned himself a bigger contract. He's earned himself more than just 1 year after this season. So you're going to have to give him like a 2 or a 3 year deal if you want to hold on to him. And you already have George Springer out there. You know, you already have a guy who's getting up there in age, and we're starting to see the fall off happen, right? So do you really want to put another 10, 20, 30 million dollars investing in Kevin Kiermaier, saying you're going to be our guy for the next 2 to 3 years, and not have a space to bring in some more youthful talent or to rotate guys in? You know, I think if you're the Blue Jays, you're probably looking at that whole scenario and thinking, you know what, maybe we let him walk, we leave that spot open, we move George Springer back over there, and then we have a kind of a rotational spot to bring in some more prospects, or hell, maybe trade for a dude in the offseason, or sign somebody younger, you know, hell, maybe even a freaking Cody Bellinger. So the 4 guys that I've mentioned up until this point, they are on the last years of their deal. So the Toronto Blue Jays, they can just let all of them walk, but this final dude, he's not. So if they're gonna get rid of him, they're gonna have to trade him.
Whoa, time for your daily Betway breather. A quick reminder that the best place to bet is on Betway. Must be 19 years of age or older to play. In collaboration with iGaming Ontario, please bet responsibly. Now, back to the content.
And the player that I'm talking about is Nate Pearson, and this one's kind of sad to admit, folks, because Nate Pearson, he has been a dude that I've been following since day one. When we started this channel, when we started this podcast, Nate Pearson, he was in the top 10 prospects in all of the MLB. The hype around Nate Pearson and the stuff that he could bring to the Major League squad, it was through the roof. You know, people were looking at what he could throw at his pitches and thinking, hell, like, that looks a lot like Garrett Cole, you know, like if everything falls the right way, we could see you develop into one of the best aces in the league, and that just hasn't happened. This year for the Toronto Blue Jays, Nate Pearson has a 4.85 ERA, and he's just not trustworthy. You know, you put him into a game, and at this point, you're effectively waving the white flag, right? Whenever we see Nate Pearson walking into a game, that means that the Toronto Blue Jays are giving up. The game's probably over. We're probably down by, you know, 4 or 5 runs at this point already, and John Schneider's just saying, hey, you know what, we'll get him tomorrow. And I think on a team like the Blue Jays, a team that you want to be super competitive, you want to be winning every single game, there's just not a space for that type of player, you know, and we've tried it. We tried it with Nate Pearson. This isn't the first time that we're bringing him up. We're giving him an opportunity. You know, we were hoping that coming into this season, being that full bullpen guy, he was going to develop, he was going to find it. All you need to do is you throw the fastball in the middle of the zone. They can't hit it because it's 100 miles per hour, and that just hasn't happened, right? So Nate Pearson, he struggled as a starter with us. He's struggled as a bullpen guy with us, and I think if you're the Toronto Blue Jays, you're just looking at this scenario as a whole, and you're going, okay, well, maybe it's time to cut our losses here and ship him off to somewhere else. Nate Pearson does have several years left on his contract if they do decide to go that route, and I think that there's a reasonable possibility that they're going to explore maybe moving him off for a prospect of some type, or maybe just like a bench bat of some kind, right? You're not going to get a ton for Nate Pearson at this point of his career, but you could probably get something back in return that maybe you can develop into somebody later. So folks, I would not be surprised in the slightest if this is the last that we see of Nate Pearson. But folks, let me know what you think about all this in the comments down below. Also, very quick shout out here, September 30th, we are going to be live in person at the Real Sports Bar in downtown Toronto. You want to be there, folks. It's kind of shaping up that game that we're going to be live for, maybe it could be a clinching scenario, which would just be incredible if that was the case. We're going to have giveaways. We're going to bring people into the stream. It's just going to be an awesome experience, folks, and you definitely want to come. Thank you so much for watching, everybody, and as always, go Jays, go.